The Lost Marine Battalion. The snow was black with soot, and the mountain howled with the last fury of World War III. In the frozen highlands of the Urals, the 5th Marine Expeditionary Battalion made their final approach on Bastion Zero, an ancient fortress retrofitted into a last-stand war bunker. The enemy command had fled here weeks ago, dragging with them bioweapons, loyalists, and enough munitions to blow a continent apart. The Marines didn't flinch. Gunnery Sergeant Ramirez crouched behind a cratered rock, the red glow of his HUD flickering as bullets whizzed overhead. His platoon was down to half strength. "Ortega, push left! Yim! Get that kid's leg sealed before he bleeds out!" To his right, Staff Sergeant Ortega was already moving, barked commands echoing over the squad net. "Bravo, on me! You want to get home! You clear that MG nest!" "On it!" came the voice of Lance Corporal Sanchez, dragging his leg behind him but still keeping his rifle up. His fatigues were scorched, his knuckles bloody, but he grinned through the chaos. He ducked behind a dead APC and opened fire, his shots precise. Even wounded, Sanchez could hit a moving drone between the eyes at 300 meters. "Hey, Gunny," he called over the channel, "you ever think we'd die in Russia again?" "I ain't dead yet, Boot." Doc Yim, the platoon's corpsman, skidded beside a screaming private, blood pouring from a thigh artery. "Tourniquet, now! You move your ass, Marine, or I swear I'll drag you to hell and bring you back." They moved by inches, through narrow corridors, over minefields, into bunkers lit by muzzle flash and flame. They finally reached the command level. Ramirez kicked the steel door down with the last of his strength. A moment later, Ortega tossed in a flashbang. Inside, an empty room, only a blinking console, a moment of confusion. Then it began to scream, not audibly, but through their HUDs, through the very air, vibrating the bone. Sanchez looked at the device and muttered, "That ain't human tech." The light exploded. Everything went white. When Lance Corporal Sanchez opened his eyes, he thought he'd died. The burning mountains were gone. The thunder of collapsing bunkers was replaced by birdsong. The thick taste of blood and smoke had vanished, replaced by the scent of wild grass and fresh air. He groaned, propped himself on one elbow and looked around. Marines lay scattered across a green field under a pale blue sky. No war, no screaming. He checked his leg. Still bandaged, still bleeding. "At least I didn't die alone," he muttered. Gunnery Sergeant Ramirez, standing beside him and scanning the hills, didn't answer. He just shook his head. Then he started barking orders. "Form perimeter, sound off by fire teams. Check ammo, check wounded, weapons up." The Marines responded on instinct. They moved like they had trained to move, regardless of the strangeness of the terrain. Above them, strange shapes hummed through the air, sleek silver craft with no visible engines. From their underbellies, figures descended on shimmering grav platforms. Their armor glowed faintly at the seams. Their faces were calm, human-like, but not quite. Sanchez aimed his rifle without hesitation. So did dozens of others. The first figure stepped forward, arms at its side. "We come in peace," it said, its voice smooth and echoing in every Marine's earpiece. "You have been extracted from a terminal moment in your history. You are now safe." "Bullshit," Ortega growled. Ramirez didn't lower his rifle. "Where the hell are we?" The figure gestured, and a map appeared in the air, a galactic view, Earth marked at the center. "You are in the year 2619, the figure replied. "The Earth Union has brought you forward to aid us. You were about to die. We saved you. You are needed." Silence. Doc Yim stepped forward, looking up at the moons overhead. "I don't think we're in Kansas anymore." Sanchez leaned back on his elbows. "Nah, wherever we are, they better have coffee." Ramirez exhaled slowly, weapon still raised. "If this is heaven, it's too quiet." "No," Sanchez said. "This is purgatory, just wait. They're gonna ask us to fight something." The temporary base camp had gone from defensive perimeter to operating fortress in less than 72 hours. Using salvaged dropship wreckage, portable construction drones, and sheer Marine stubbornness, the valley had become a hardened firebase, complete with firing lines, supply caches, a central command tent, and a triage zone under heavy canopy. Gunnery Sergeant Ramirez walked the perimeter at dawn with Staff Sergeant Ortega at his side. "Still nothing on the motion sensors?" Ramirez asked. "Nothing but local fauna," Ortega said, "if you can call those six-legged deer fauna." "Still don't trust this place," Ramirez muttered. "Too clean, too calm." Yeah, peace makes me itch. Inside the central tent, a debriefing was in progress. The Union's representative, Commander Lyle, tall, calm, and soft-spoken, projected a galaxy-wide map. It glowed with thousands of stars and hundreds of colored territories. The Council of Elders rules 80% of known space, she explained. But they do not rule openly. They infiltrate, destabilize, and absorb. They seduced humanity with peace and progress. Now we control only Mercury, Earth, Luna, and Mars. The outer colonies are either lost or silenced. The room was silent. Marines shifted uncomfortably. Your records, Lyle continued, show your unit was lost during an operation to clear Bastion Zero in 2043. You were believed dead. Heroes, martyrs, but we knew your unit died at a perfectly isolated temporal nexus. Saving you would not impact the rest of Earth's timeline. You used us, Ortega growled. We need you, she corrected. Ramirez stepped forward. You want Marines? You got Marines, but we don't fight under anyone's flag unless we have one hell of a reason. And if you want a war, you're going to need to relearn everything. He stabbed a finger toward the hologram. Your fleets are too soft. Your soldiers, hell, I saw better discipline in training battalions. You don't need warriors. You need a whole new corps. Later that evening, Union leadership gathered around a large table with Ramirez, Ortega, Yim, and a dozen senior non-coms. The Union agreed to temporary autonomy for the battalion, allowing them to operate as a semi-independent command unit, 3rd Marine Combat Command, with full authority to restructure Union forces for the coming war. They had 1 month to begin transformation. Meanwhile, Lance Corporal Sanchez leaned over a table in the engineering wing of the Union's forward operations station. His leg was healing, barely, but his mind was on fire. In front of him were old sketches he'd kept in a notebook from the 2040s. Massive battle suits inspired by mechs from old anime, schematic ideas for powered armor, stealth recon systems, and adaptive weapons. He scanned the Union engineers' faces. You said you can build anything, right? The lead engineer, Ares Talon, half cybernetic, half skeptical, nodded slowly. Anything that doesn't violate physics? Yes, Sanchez grinned. Good, 'cause here's the wish list. He slapped the notebook onto the table and flipped it open. XM-01 Centurion, 25-foot-tall mobile exosuit designed for heavy combat in both atmosphere and vacuum. Dual plasma chain guns, interchangeable shoulder-mounted artillery, flight-capable in low gravity. MEX Vanguard armor, marine-sized exosuit for ground assault. Features enhanced shielding, jump jets, integrated HUD linkage with real-time AI support and auto-med systems. Spectre recon suits, ultralight infiltration suits with adaptive camo, sound null generators, zero-emission footprints, and a grav-silent mobility system, designed for void black ops and close recon. Close combat gear, plasma-honed blades, bayonet mount smart carbines, knives that could slice through Council alloy plating. Ares stared. You want us to build this? Sanchez shrugged. You pulled us from the fire for a reason. I'm just making sure we light a bigger one. The next day, training commenced. Marines began drilling the Union's Peace Corps, a ceremonial defense force restructured into the Union combat forces. They started with discipline. Boot camp returned, running, rifle training, squad tactics, ambush drills, zero-G maneuvering, survival in hostile environments. Every trainee puked by day 3. But something changed. By week 2, they were shouting cadence. By week 3, they were holding their own in mock engagements. Ramirez walked the lines with arms crossed, helmet under one arm. They're still soft, he muttered. But they're learning, Ortega said. And we're not alone anymore, Doc Yim added, patching a recruit's bruised ribs. They may not be Marines, but give it time. The cavernous engineering facility beneath Union Command HQ buzzed with activity. Drones hovered, welders sparked, and schematics hovered in holographic layers across the air. Sanchez's wish list was no longer a sketchbook of dreams. It was in mid-production. The XM-01 Centurion frame stood 3 stories tall, a skeletal colossus of alloy and reinforced ceramic plating. Its right arm ended in a modular weapon port. Engineers worked in a lattice scaffold around it like bees on a hive. Nearby, racks of Vanguard exosuits lined the walls, sleek, squat, powerful. Lower in profile than the Centurion, but still deadly. And behind them, a shimmering set of Spectre suits, nearly invisible save for the shimmer of their adaptive cloth. 3 Union leaders stood in disbelief. Director Halver, head of military oversight, narrowed his eyes. Who authorized this? Admiral Kiva, her posture ramrod straight, turned to General Theron. This isn't on the RAND schedule. These designs weren't vetted. These weapons weren't cleared. They're already being built, Theron growled. At this scale, this didn't start yesterday. Halver turned to the nearest engineer. Who approved this program? Ares Talon, the half-cybernetic project lead, flinched slightly, then nodded toward the far end of the lab. Lance Corporal Sanchez, sir. He submitted a design file. I assumed it had Marine Command approval. Halver turned purple. You assumed? Ares hesitated. It was technically unclassified. He said it was a list of suggestions. Suggestions? Kiva echoed. General Theron scowled. From a Lance Corporal, they stormed out of the lab. Outside, on the walk back to command, they tried to make sense of what they'd seen. Mobile armor platforms, Halver muttered. Stealth exosuits, field-adaptable plasma carbines. Do you think the Marines know? Kiva asked. They have to know, but the kid went over their heads. Theron shook his head and sighed. We need to establish protocol. No more engineering without senior oversight. They paused at the elevator platform. Silence. Finally, Halver chuckled. He's got balls, I'll give him that. Keva smirked. Sanchez may be reckless, but he's probably the most dangerous dreamer we've got. They shook their heads as the lift ascended, the unfinished silhouette of the Centurion looming in the distance. Recon orders had come through, the first deep space insertion, the target. Vallis Station, a long-abandoned Union listening post near the edge of Council-monitored space. Orbital scans showed activity, too precise, too cloaked. Sergeant Vega, former Marine Force recon now equipped with a prototype Spectre suit, led the team, 2 Marines, 2 Union operatives. Sanchez himself suited up. For field testing, he insisted. Field testing's supposed to happen before we go behind enemy lines, Ortega grunted. I'm flexible, Sanchez said with a grin. The Spectre suits activated. The team vanished into shimmer. What was supposed to be an empty station was crawling with Council drones, sleek, black, insectoid, silent. Vega's voice crackled through tight beam comms. They're not mining, they're listening. This station's relaying signals to something deeper. Inside the central core, they found it. A data lattice, massive, intricate, alien, running predictive models, on Earth. One screen showed Union fleet deployment, another biosignatures of Union political leaders. A third showed Marines. Holy hell, Sanchez whispered. They're not just watching, they're planning a decapitation strike. Vega nodded. We ghost the station, then we ghost the data. He planted a breach charge. At T-2 minutes, the team began to exfil. But the station wasn't asleep anymore. Alarms shrieked in a language none of them recognized. Drones swarmed. Sanchez ducked a scything plasma beam and fired a short burst from his wrist mount. Field test successful, he yelled. Less testing, more running, Vega barked. The team barely made it to the dropship. The Spectre suits held up under fire. Sanchez's armor took a full drone blast and held. The station exploded in the upper atmosphere, a flower of fire blooming in the void. Back at Union Command, Ramirez stood beside General Theron during the debrief. You want to know what makes Marines different? Ramirez said, watching the strike footage. They adapt. You gave us a century of peace. We'll give you a war of hellfire. Theron nodded slowly. And the Council? Ramirez turned away from the screen, the flash of the explosion still lingering in his eyes. They're going to learn what happens when you bring ghosts back from the dead. The sky over New Solis darkened as the Council's silent hand made its first true move. At precisely 2200 hours Sol Standard Time, the Earth Union President's Secure Orbital Transport, EUS Resilience, was en route from Luna to Earth for a strategic defense summit. 2 escort ships, 15 Union security agents, and orbital overwatch were in place. None of it mattered. The assassins struck from inside. A genetically engineered infiltrator, designed to mimic human DNA and behavior, activated a microfusion device in the president's private quarters. The blast should have vaporized the entire command crew. But fate, or maybe Marine paranoia, intervened. Staff Sergeant Ortega had been assigned to security detail on a rotation the Marines called window dressing, a diplomatic show of strength. He hated it. While others stood stiffly in dress blues, Ortega wore modified combat armor under the uniform. The Union agents mocked him. Trying to relive the war, Sergeant? He'd growled back. only if I get lucky. And he did. Moments before the explosion, Ortega noticed a telltale micro-gesture, barely a twitch on one of the agent's faces. It wasn't human. It was trained mimicry. He tackled the president to the floor as the wall exploded. His left side took the brunt of the blast. Shrapnel ripped through his shoulder and ribs. He still managed to shoot the infiltrator in the head as it leapt from the flames. The Resilience emergency landed in the Pacific Arcology. Ortega was unconscious before the dust settled. The assassination attempt shocked the Earth Union. President Rana Darth survived with burns and a fractured leg. In her next address, wrapped in gauze and fire in her voice, she made it official. We have been deceived. The Council of Elders claims harmony. What they gave us was sedation, and now they have shown their hand. From this moment, the Earth Union is no longer a passive member of the Galactic Order. We are at war, and we will not go quietly. The Council denied involvement. Their fleets shifted positions. Communications with several outer colonies ceased entirely. Earth knew what was coming. 2 days later, in the shadow of the Titan Spire on Luna, the recommissioning ceremony began. Before millions of live feeds and billions of viewers, Gunnery Sergeant Ramirez, standing beside President Dareth and General Theron, took the mic. He wore battle-scarred armor. Not ceremonial. Real. We were brought back from death to watch history repeat itself. But we aren't here to watch. We're here to finish what our time couldn't. Today, the United Earth Marine Corps is reborn. We are the shield between our people and extinction. We do not run. We do not beg. We do not forget who we are. The crowd erupted. Behind the stage, rows of Marines stood at attention, old and new, 2,043 war veterans beside the next generation. And Lance Corporal Sanchez, standing near the back, grinned and muttered to Doc Yim, "Hell of a homecoming." The Centurion program was accelerated. The first XM-01 Centurion, now named Justice, completed atmospheric drop tests. Vanguard and Spectre suits were mass-produced. Marine Command reorganized into strike groups with hybrid task forces designed for deep space, orbital, and planetary operations. Union forces, once ceremonial, now stood fully integrated under Joint Earth Combat Command. Intel suggested the Council was moving ships near the Naraka Expanse, a dead zone near old Union colonies. Scouts went silent there. Something was building. In deep space, a lone Union listening post, stationed Kelmaris 9, monitored Council traffic. One Marine, Private Elwood, a 2043 comms specialist, sat at his console, boots kicked up, scanning star-laced silence. Suddenly, the screen lit up. 77 Council ships. No ID, no flight plans, no response. Heading toward Earth space. He sat up straight. "Command, this is Kelmaris 9. You're going to want to hear this." The war room was dim, lit only by the glow of stellar charts and fleet telemetry. Gunnery Sergeant Ramirez stood at the center, his fingers tracing a projection of the Naraka Expanse, a volatile region of dead stars, magnetic fields, and radiation shadows. The perfect place for an ambush. Around the table were Union fleet commanders, starship captains, tactical AIs, and a silent President Dareth. Hovering at the edge, Lance Corporal Sanchez tapped rapidly at a datapad, pulling up simulations of armor deployment patterns. Ramirez cleared his throat. "You want to survive out there?" he began. "Then you start thinking like the old naval dogs did, Age of Sail, World War II, Cold War. Because in the void, it's the same fight, different physics." The room fell quiet. Ramirez paced. Cover and concealment don't exist in the vacuum. What does exist is angle of attack, power projection, line of sight targeting. What the Navy used to call crossing the T. You line up on an enemy broadside and rake 'em with everything you've got. You catch their narrow profile instead, you're in trouble. Flanking maneuvers, staggered salvos, and timing your strikes to their shield recharge cycles, added Staff Sergeant Ortega, one arm still in a sling from the assassination blast. Out there, you don't wait for permission. You strike first and finish it fast. "Position is life," Ramirez growled. "Speed is your shield. And deception?" He looked at Commander Lyle. "That's your damn sword." The 3rd Marine Combat Command deployed aboard the newly commissioned UEV Hammerfall, a retrofitted warship with forward railgun batteries, missile tubes, and a drop bay for Marine exosuits. The scout post's last transmission gave a vector, Council forces emerging from Naraka, silent, in full burn. Earth couldn't wait. Fleet Group 12 and Marine Strike Force Orion jumped into the sector. The battle began 20 minutes later. Multiple hostile contacts, barked the tactical officer on Hammerfall's bridge. 70 confirmed vessels, mix of drone carriers, gunships, and one capital-class behemoth. They're not talking. Neither are we, Ramirez said. All ships, echelon formation. We punch first. The Hammerfall surged forward, flanked by 2 smaller cruisers and a ring of point defense drones. The first salvo came from a Council railbore ship, pulsed gravitic rounds that tore a hole through one of the flanking cruisers. A hull breach spiraled dozens of Union sailors into the void. Dagger formation! Cut right! The fleet commander shouted. Ortega, now suited up in a vanguard, led the first squad to the launch bays. Open the barn, he said into the comm. In the launch cradle beside him, Sanchez stood inside XM-01 Centurion Justice, its armor blackened with ion burn camouflage. The suit's eyes lit red. Ready for the fireworks, Sanchez muttered. Let's see what this bad boy can do. The outer airlock burst open. 12 Vanguard suits and 1 Centurion leaped into the void. Sanchez ignited his vector thrusters and angled toward the nearest enemy cruiser. Missiles streaked past him. Laser fire tracked but missed. His HUD painted targets like fireflies. 2 drones came in fast, spinning blades like metallic saws. He rotated mid-flight, locked on, and fired twin plasma bursts from his forearm cannons. 1 drone exploded, the other clipped his shoulder but didn't penetrate the Centurion's reinforced armor. Doc Yim, he called. Remind me to file a complaint with Randy. Doc's voice came through the team line. Noted. I'll stitch you up later. Below, a Council gunship began deploying troops toward one of the Union's outer frigates. Ortega and his vanguard squad slammed into their path, literal boots in the void. What followed was pure chaos. Blades met armor, pulse rifles lit up, explosions sent bodies tumbling across zero-G corridors. Ortega tore through 3 enemy infantry with a close-quarters plasma halberd. His suit was bleeding coolant, but he didn't slow down. Inside the Centurion, Sanchez finally reached his target. The enemy cruiser's reactor core was exposed from a previous blast. He locked both rail thrust arms, primed the plasma overloads, and dove into the breach. Time to knock, he muttered, and drove his blade straight into the core. A star bloomed. Back aboard the Hammerfall, Ramirez watched as Sanchez's comm went dark. Was that his suit? Liel asked quietly. No, Ramirez said, staring at the screen. That was Sanchez. 5 minutes later, a battered Centurion suit limped onto a recovery deck. Plasma lines scarred, thrusters dead, but the pilot alive. The crew cheered as Sanchez stumbled out. Told you it'd hold, he coughed. You're a lunatic, Yim muttered, running to stabilize him. Thanks, Sanchez grinned. Means it's working. Of the original 70 enemy ships, only 9 escaped. Union lost 3 cruisers and 72 Marines. But Earth had won the first real victory and sent a message across the stars. The ghosts of 2043 were no longer history. They were the future. The docks of Orbital Command Station Heracles were a blur of activity. Damaged warships drifted in under escort, hulls blackened, plating torn, energy grids flickering, testaments to a battle Earth had never expected to survive, let alone win. But they had, and now they had work to do. Inside the command chambers, tactical analysts, Marines, engineers, and Union fleet officers convened under the silent gaze of holographic wreckage. At the center of the table, a rotating display showed a world cloaked in artificial fog. Council Site 4127A, codename Arcadia, deep in disputed space. Believed to house a prototype gravitic superweapon capable of folding stellar mass into kinetic lances, planet killers. Recon reports from Vega's Spectre team confirmed the worst. Construction was nearly complete. There would be no time for diplomacy. Earth had to strike. The Battle of Naraka was brutal, but instructive. Every scar left on armor, every malfunction, every dropout in fire control taught Earth something new. Within days, upgrades swept through every frontline unit. Centurion enhancements. XM-01 Justice and its sister units now included plasma vent armor, able to radiate absorbed heat after multiple impacts, reducing overheating from energy-based attacks. The power reinforcement frame was added to the joints, eliminating the buckling that nearly crippled Sanchez mid-assault. Sanchez's own suit received an AI-integrated targeting system, allowing predictive lock-on for intercepting fast-moving drones and missiles in deep space. Vanguard suit modifications. integrated anti-grav boosters with vectored nozzles, giving infantry true three-dimensional agility during spaceboarding actions. Modularity upgrades allowed mission-based loadouts, breaching kits, anti-armor packs, stealth ECM kits, and emergency medical pods. Spectre recon gear. Cloaking duration increased by 60% thanks to adaptive mesh memory fabric. Sensor-silent boots replaced magnetic locks, eliminating vibrational signatures. New nano-chaff dispersers for automated drone evasion. Fleet-wide changes. Hammerfall-class cruisers received rotational point defense rings, allowing near 360-degree drone and missile coverage. The Cyclone missile system was rushed into production. Multi-stage projectiles that adjusted trajectory mid-flight to chase down evasive targets. In short, Earth got smarter, faster, meaner, and above all, ready. Gunnery Sergeant Ramirez stood before the Joint Strike Force. Behind him, a star map glowed red at its center, Arcadia. You all saw what happened at Naraka. That was a knife fight in the dark. Arcadia will be worse. Heavier defenses, automated countermeasures, an atmosphere choked with radiation from the weapon core. We don't get second chances. He gestured to Ortega and Doc Yim. These are your drop commanders. They'll lead the assault inside the Arcadia Basin. You will touch down, breach the perimeter, destroy the weapon, and exfil on a tight window. He turned toward Sanchez, now in a new Exo variant, the XM02 Vindicator, larger, faster, more aggressive. Sanchez will go in first, wipe the anti-air grid, clear the way. Sanchez gave a half salute, already dialed in. Ramirez looked over the assembled Marines. We've got one shot. This is the biggest play we've made since you were dragged into this war. But make no mistake, if we fail, Earth burns and we lose everything. Silence. Then Sanchez muttered, guess we better win. The strike fleet assembled near Jovian Station Ajax, 12 warships, 4 carrier platforms, 300 Marines and Vanguards and Spectres, 6 Centurion-class exosuits, 1 carrying Sanchez. The ships jumped in unison, folding through the void. Destination, Arcadia. War wasn't coming anymore. Humanity was bringing it. Arcadia System, 0300 hours, insertion time. The Arcadia System bled red light. The main world, Arcadia 7, hung beneath an unstable brown dwarf, cloaked in storms and radiation fields so dense that sensors were near useless. The Council had chosen it well for their Black Site project. But Marines didn't need perfect visibility. They just needed a way in. The Hammerfall, leading the strike fleet, launched the first wave of drop pods. Fire laced the void as streaks of reinforced tungsten pierced the upper atmosphere. Inside the pods, Marines in Vanguard armor gripped restraints, silent, except for the automated countdown. Ortega sat up front, visor down. Touchdown in 30, oxygen's thin, radiation's thick, kill fast, die slower. Doc Yim snorted. Reassuring as always. Above them, 6 Centurion exosuits deployed from orbital bays. Their vector thrusters blazed through the clouds like comets. At the center of the formation was Sanchez, piloting the new XM02 Vindicator, its heavier frame groaning with reactor power, dual forearm blasters glowing hot. He didn't say much. He just pushed forward. The first wave hit the surface like thunder. Rock and ash exploded outward. Marines spread in tight formations, ghosting between cover. Council drones, bipedal walkers with antimatter lances, emerged from bunker hatches and engaged without hesitation. Contact north and west, Ortega shouted. Flank left. Pulse fire lit up the battlefield. Spectre teams infiltrated behind drone lines, using the distorted terrain to their advantage. They planted demo charges on support pylons and disappeared before the enemy could react. Drone shield arrays are down, a Spectre officer radioed. Sanchez, you're clear for entry. At the heart of the Arcadia base stood the Citadel core, a monolithic spire of Council design humming with stored stellar energy. Inside, the gravitic superweapon neared completion. Its ring of containment arms now glowed a sickly green, rotating faster with each cycle. From orbit, the Union fleet picked up the surge. It's powering up, Ramirez warned. You've got 7 minutes. Sanchez didn't wait. He slammed through the front blast doors, incinerating Council infantry in his path. His Centurion's shoulder-mounted launchers unleashed a barrage of micro-missiles, tearing into plasma turrets along the walls. He reached the power chamber. It was worse than they thought. The weapon was active. Its gravitic field had begun to distort local space-time. Sanchez's HUD scrambled, then realigned. Everything inside screamed danger. "Command," he radioed. "The weapon's going live. I can't shut it down from here." "Can you stall it?" Ramirez asked. Sanchez looked at the containment ring, looked at the reactor, looked at his suit's core. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Yeah, I can stall it." He opened the reactor access port inside his cockpit. Vindicator core, override safeties, begin overload sequence. Warning, core stability failsafe disabled. Critical reactor cascade initiated. "Sanchez, what the hell are you doing?" Ramirez barked over the channel. "Just buying you a future, Gunny." He pushed the throttles forward and took flight, straight into the center of the gravitic weapon array. The last thing he saw was the containment chamber blooming with color, red, green, white, and then everything went silent. Orbit 5 minutes later. The Citadel vanished from the planetary surface. A shockwave of light burst upward, hurling debris into the sky like volcanic ejecta. The hammerfall rocked under the wavefront. On every deck, crew members fell silent, staring at the blinding display. No signal came from Sanchez. No return ping. Only silence. Arcadia 7 was dead. The Citadel was gone, reduced to slag and atmospheric radiation. The Union fleet pulled back in silence, dragging wounded ships and battered Marines through the black, carrying the cost of victory in their blood and hulls. In the Hammerfall's medbay, Doc Yim sat beside a sedated Ortega, whose armor was still partially fused to his side from a plasma burst during exfil. No one spoke of Sanchez. They didn't have to. He was listed MIA, presumed KIA. The logs from the Vindicator's black box ended at detonation. The last image was of the suit accelerating into the core as its containment fields collapsed. Ramirez stood alone in the launch bay. He hadn't taken off his armor. 3 days later, the Marine Memorial Service was held aboard Station Helios, orbiting above the burned wreck of Arcadia 7. 100 Marines stood in full dress. Union officers lined the rear, heads bowed. President Dareth spoke. He wasn't born in this century, but he died saving it. In Lance Corporal Sanchez, we saw more than courage. We saw defiance, the kind of defiance that makes tyrants afraid. We will not forget him. We will fight because of him. A single Centurion helmet was placed on the stand. A rifle stood upright in front of it. A pair of dog tags hung from the barrel. No one moved when taps played. Ramirez looked up, jaw clenched. He deserved better. Yim stood beside him. He got forever. 5 days after Arcadia, Union Deep Space Listening Post Echo 19 picked up a strange burst. Encrypted, ancient, dirty code, but buried beneath the static, something clear. 2 words, translated directly from old Earth combat protocols. Mission complete. It originated from the edge of uncharted space, beyond known council borders. Then silence. No one could trace it, until someone did. Union Command scrambled when the anomaly appeared in the upper atmosphere above Earth. A vessel, misshapen, scorched, asymmetrical, broke through re-entry like a collapsing meteor. No drive signature, no heat shielding, no explanation. It hovered on broken thrusters, shuddered, then landed hard on Lunar Forward Base Vega, tearing a crater into the tarmac. Alarms blared. Marines in full armor ringed the vessel, weapons raised, the hull hissed open. Sparks rained down. Out of the smoke, a figure stepped through. Armor blackened, chest plate seared, helmet dented beyond recognition. And then the voice, hoarse, half laughing. "Someone better have a damn cup of coffee." Sanchez, alive. Chapter 10. What he brought back. The debrief Lunar Forward Base Vega had never seen so much tension in one room. President Dareth, General Theron, Commander Lyle, and a dozen senior officers sat in stunned silence as Lance Corporal Sanchez, soot-streaked, armor still smoking, sipped hot black coffee like he'd just walked out of a morning briefing. "Let me get this straight," Lyle finally said, her voice tight. "You detonated a mobile fusion core inside a Council gravitic superweapon." Sanchez grinned and shrugged. "Yeah, I'm kinda hard to kill." "You were listed MIA," said Theron. "No escape trajectory, no telemetry. We thought you disintegrated." "Yeah, about that." He leaned back, tapping the side of his battered helmet. "During the last round of suit upgrades, I had the engineers install an advanced auto-eject system into the Centurions. High-G compression system, zero-G thruster sling, self-contained shielding. Said it was for pilot survivability, but really it was just for me." He paused to sip his coffee. "My dad gave me 2 orders before I joined the Corps," Sanchez continued, smiling faintly. 1, don't commit any war crimes. 2, don't die without his permission. He let the moment hang, then added, He's been dead for 6 years, so no way in hell I'm getting that permission. A few chuckles broke the tension. Even Ramirez cracked a smirk. Liel shook her head. You ejected in the middle of a collapsing singularity. You should have been shredded. I almost was, Sanchez replied, more serious now. Except, he hesitated, except something grabbed me. Sanchez's voice dropped. I was tumbling through the Arcadia debris field. My eject capsule was frying from all sides. Radiation, energy spikes, gravitic pulses. My comms were gone. Hull integrity at 4%. I was counting down seconds. And then, Sanchez looked up. There was a light. Not white. Not like anything I've ever seen. It didn't shine. It just was, like it ignored physics. And then I felt myself stop moving. He rubbed the back of his neck. I mean dead stop, in 0G. No deceleration. Like I was plucked out of space. The room fell quiet again. Ramirez narrowed his eyes. Council Tech? No, Council Tech doesn't make you feel like you're standing inside your childhood bedroom while staring at your own grave from orbit. Sanchez leaned forward, voice now steady. Whatever grabbed me, it wasn't human, and it sure as hell wasn't Council. It didn't speak, it didn't explain, it just looked at me, or through me, and then I was waking up in that junk ship, pointed toward Earth. President Dareth's brow furrowed. Are you saying someone, or something, rescued you? Sanchez nodded. Or sent me back. Outside the base, Union engineers tore into the ship Sanchez had arrived in. It didn't match any known configuration. No thrusters, no engine signature, no navigation logs. The internal architecture was wrong, half organic, half metallic, and it responded to neural touch. Worse, it wasn't there on orbital surveillance until the moment it landed. General Theron called it a ghost. The Marines just called it a miracle. Sanchez, however, wasn't smiling anymore. I've got a feeling, he said quietly to Yim and Ortega later that night, standing on the launch deck. Whatever pulled me out of that explosion, it wasn't just being nice. Ortega, still bandaged, raised an eyebrow. Then what was it? Sanchez looked out at the stars. I think it was choosing sides. It started in the Cygnus Drift. A Union listening post, Deep Watch 77, went silent. No distress call, no explosion, just gone. A deep space freighter passing through hours later found only wreckage, twisted like it had been folded into itself. The hulls weren't burned, they were peeled. Tactical AI flagged the attack as non-council. Union Command dismissed it, until it happened again and again. 6 disappearances in 2 weeks. None matched council patterns, no energy weapon signatures, no known ship types, no communication. But there were signals. Odd bursts of compressed binary, loop transmissions with rotating data blocks. Hidden in the pulses were low-band images, distorted symbols, strange star charts, and one image that froze even the hardened Marines when decrypted. A silhouette, vaguely humanoid, standing beside a downed Centurion suit. It wasn't Sanchez, and it wasn't human. At the same time, high-level Union intelligence reported unexpected activity within Council space. Whole fleets began going dark, not destroyed but cut off. Internal chatter leaked through sympathizer channels. Something ancient had awakened, and not all of the Council agreed on how to respond. Word spread of breakaway factions, splinter races abandoning the central elder orders, vanishing into the void. Some were calling it the Rift War, a civil fracture hidden from the public eye. The Union saw opportunity, but Ramirez saw something else. When your enemy starts bleeding, he told General Theron, you don't celebrate, you get ready, because something worse is coming. Back at Lunar Base Vega, the 3rd Marine Combat Command doubled its readiness posture. Recon teams were embedded with patrol fleets. Spectre squads began quiet operations into Council border regions, seeding surveillance buoys, tapping communication relays, and exfiltrating before drones could engage. Centurion suits were rolled out in full, 12 operational units, each with improved eject systems, hardened grav shielding, and modular field kits. Sanchez had been cleared for active duty but was distant. He trained harder, talked less. Ortega noticed. You still thinking about what saved you? He asked during a sparring match. Sanchez blocked a kick and grunted, No, I'm thinking about why. He looked toward the stars, and what it wants next. The answer came on a cold, dead moon. Eris Outpost Delta, once a research colony, went dark for 36 hours. When Union Marines arrived, they found every system intact. No bodies, no battle, only a single phrase etched into the landing pad in crystalline scorch marks. You were chosen because you remember. Inside the main terminal was a message package, encrypted in the exact same cipher that pulled Sanchez back from Arcadia. He was the only one who could open it. In a secure chamber, flanked by Ramirez, Dareth, and 2 intel officers, Sanchez decrypted the file. A holographic starfield appeared. Then a voice, not mechanical, not alien, but disturbingly familiar, as if it used a piece of his memory to shape itself. This galaxy has forgotten balance. You are not the first to rise, but you may be the last. The elders bring stagnation. You bring fire. The fire must spread. The stars rotated. An unknown region lit up, uncharted space beyond the Orion boundary. If you want answers, come to the hollow sky. The message ended. What the hell is the hollow sky? Ortega asked, staring at the projected star map. No official records, Lyell said. Not even mythological references. Then it's a trap, General Theron growled. Maybe, President Dareth said. Or maybe it's something else. Ramirez folded his arms. One enemy's already at our gates. If there's a second player, we need to know what they are, friend or foe. His gaze fell to Sanchez. What do you think? Sanchez looked at the image. The symbol etched at the bottom, the same one that pulsed in his brain during Arcadia's detonation. I think they've already decided what I am. The room was quiet, too quiet for Sanchez's taste. Projected above the table was a region of starless void, an unsettling wedge of space beyond the Orion boundary. Outside known council territory, no gravitational markers, no known stellar bodies, no comms, no light, just a dead zone of perfectly silent sky. The hollow sky, a mission was being formed, volunteer only, deep recon, no guarantee of return. President Dareth looked around the room, her voice clear but heavy. We've been led to a place the council refuses to acknowledge. Something or someone wants us to see it. We need to know why. We need eyes on the inside. Silence. Then, from the back corner of the room, well, I guess I'll go. All eyes turned to Sanchez, leaning casually against the wall, arms crossed, helmet under one arm. He flashed a grin. But just for the record, I'm way too young to be in a committed relationship with an unknown alien intelligence. Dareth raised an eyebrow. And yet, you're volunteering. He shrugged. I've survived a superweapon detonation, council boarding parties, and Ortega's cooking. I'll take my chances. Ortega snorted. That was chilly, you jackass. Mission Assembly Ramirez approved the op, but only with his own people. Recon Team Helix was formed. Sanchez, mission lead, Centurion pilot, Sergeant Nyla Jex, Spectre infiltration specialist, known for making targets vanish quietly. Corpsman Yim, medic, technical support, and bad luck charm. Lieutenant Harlan Kravik, Union astrophysicist, selected to analyze unknown tech. Vanguard Fire Team Echo, 2 Marines handpicked for zero-G combat efficiency. The vessel was stripped down, stealth modified, and jump capable. UEV Obsidian Raven, outfitted with compressed drive cores and optical cloaks. It launched under full comm silence 2 days later. The hollow sky. The jump was rough, too rough. Gravitational drift knocked out long-range sensors. The stars outside looked wrong, smeared like reflections off broken glass. Something about this region bent perception itself. Inside the hollow sky, there were no planets, no moons, only a single structure floating in open space. A ring, nearly 300 kilometers wide, slowly rotating around an invisible axis. It had no surface seams, no energy emissions. It didn't even register on heat scans. Tell me that's not natural, Nyla muttered. It's not, Kravik said flatly. It's older than natural. The ring suddenly responded. Lights bloomed across its surface, as if awakening. The Raven's systems blinked out for 3 seconds. When they came back online, a hangar had opened. Inside the ring, the interior wasn't made of metal. It was grown. Organic arches, gravity-inverted walkways, and walls that pulsed faintly with a heartbeat rhythm. Sanchez took point, plasma rifle ready. But the further they walked, the more surreal it became. The architecture adjusted as they moved. Ceilings retracted. Lights followed their steps. At the center of the ring, they found it. A chamber of mirrors, each reflecting not themselves but moments in time. Earth's wars, the rise of the Council, humanity's first contact, and then a final mirror. It showed Sanchez, standing in front of the Arcadia weapon, frozen mid-charge. But someone stood beside him, a silhouette, undefined, watching. A pulse rang out. Sanchez's helmet HUD flickered. Then a voice, again shaped like his father's, spoke. Now you see, you were not chosen for survival, you were chosen for memory. War must return or the fire will die forever. The council bound this galaxy in stagnation. You must burn the chains. Sanchez blinked. Okay, so just to clarify, you want me to start a fire? The room didn't respond. Only the mirrors did, now showing distant council fleets, and something else approaching them. Something vast. Kravik stared in horror. That's not a fleet, that's a species. Before the team exfiltrated, Yim retrieved a small egg-like object from the mirror chamber. It pulsed with quantum encryption. The AI aboard the Raven decrypted only a fragment. When the spark returns, the galaxy will choose. If it chooses silence, all will end. If it chooses fire, then rise. Back in Sol space, the Obsidian Raven re-entered friendly territory. Sanchez handed the egg device to Ramirez and simply said, "They're older than the council, and they're watching." Ramirez studied his face. "You trust them?" Sanchez shook his head. "Hell no." He looked up at the stars. "But I think they trust me, and that might be even worse." The council did not send a message. They sent a fleet. Thousands of ships poured into the edge of Sol space from 7 jump corridors, each entry precisely timed, each wave staggered for sustained assault. It was no longer war by proxy. This was annihilation. Their target, Earth, Luna Command, and Mars Foundry Ring, the heart of Union civilization. The alarm klaxons blared across every orbital platform and ground installation. Civilian transports fled to the dark side of the moon. Defense satellites came online. Planetary shields, long considered symbolic, were primed for their first real test. Inside the Hammerfall, Ramirez addressed every Marine unit via fleet-wide comms. "They think they can erase us. They think peace made us weak. But we remember who we are. We were born in the fire, and we're going to show them how we burn." The Council's first salvo wasn't elegant. It was brutal. Mass driver rounds the size of cargo ships slammed into Earth's upper orbital grid. Union cruisers were ripped in half, hulls folding inward like paper. The shield net held barely, but flickered red under sustained impact. Council drones surged forward in perfect formations, sharp-edged, black as vacuum, bristling with particle beams. The Union fleet responded with staggered salvos. Railguns opened up from orbital defense platforms. Counter-drone missiles swept the stars. Explosions danced across Earth's sky like a firestorm. Amid it all, Centurion units deployed, dropping from launch tubes like meteors, their armor catching fire in re-entry, thrusters flaring. Sanchez led the charge. Inside XM2 Vindicator, he split through a drone wing with wrist blade strikes, cutting them from formation before they could regroup. "They brought a chessboard," he muttered. "Let's give 'em checkmate." Council drop pods rained down on the dark side of Luna. Giant spike-shaped capsules that embedded themselves and exploded open to reveal legions of enemy warforms. The Marines were already waiting. Vanguard squads, fortified inside underground barracks, burst onto the surface with grav boots active and pulse rifles at full charge. They formed staggered fire lines, hammering the enemy with overlapping arcs. Ortega, leading Fire Team Alpha, dove into melee with twin plasma hatchets, carving through alien armor and dodging acidic blood splashes. "Yim, I'm leaking plasma over here. I told you to wear your damn armor, not show off." Meanwhile, Spectre teams blinked across the battlefield, stealth systems shimmering, slipping behind the lines to disable enemy artillery. Inside a ravine near Luna Crater 4, Sergeant Nyla Jex single-handedly deactivated an enemy signal relay by plunging a combat blade through its command core, dodging 3 kinetic darts in the process. Despite brutal resistance, the Council's numbers began to tell. 2 orbital stations went dark. The Martian Foundry Ring was breached. Power grids on the Earth's defense satellites overloaded. Then came the capital ship. A Council Annihilator-class juggernaut, the size of Manhattan, burst from hyperspace directly above Earth's North Pole. It opened fire with a gravity lance, a beam that bent time and space to fracture shielding in real time. Earth's planetary shield failed at 30%. Hammerfall was crippled. Command went silent. But Sanchez wasn't finished. In low orbit, with Vindicator's power reserves draining and hull integrity down to 12%, he transmitted across all Union and Marine comms. "If you can still hear this, you're not dead. And if you're not dead, get up, because I am not letting these aliens take my planet. This is our house. and it's time we show them what humanity does when you knock too damn hard. He dove, straight toward the juggernaut. With 2 other Centurions at his flank, Sanchez used the planet's own gravity to slingshot into the ship's hull. Kinetic countermeasures couldn't track them in time. They breached the outer armor. Inside, the air was thick with blue mist. The walls pulsed like a living thing. Council warriors rushed them, 10-limbed, cloaked in anti-light armor. Sanchez switched to close combat, his plasma edge cutting down attackers with brutal efficiency. His HUD blared warnings. He ignored them. In the core chamber, they found the weapon, another gravitic lance preparing to fire. Sanchez rigged his suit's power core into a disruptive resonance pulse. Not suicidal this time, but close. "Second time's not going to be lucky," he muttered, just loud. The pulse detonated, frying the weapon. The juggernaut drifted, then exploded from the inside out. Council forces faltered. With the capital ship gone, Union forces surged. Fleet remnants flanked the remaining enemy wings. Marines pushed them back into orbit. One by one, the Council ships fled. They had failed, and Earth was still standing. Smoke still curled above the scorched edges of Luna's battlefields. Earth's orbital ring was cracked in 5 places. 4 fleet carriers had been lost. Hundreds of drop pods littered the Pacific Ocean. Of the original 1,300 Marines deployed to the Sol defense perimeter, only 780 remained combat-capable. In Hangar Bay 3 aboard the Hammerfall, the wounded were being lined up for medevac. Sanchez stood near the outer edge, arms crossed, battered Centurion armor slung behind him. He looked over rows of covered bodies being tagged and lifted. He wiped a streak of grime from his cheek, and with it, a tear. "Some Marines will do anything to get out of work," he said softly, forcing a crooked grin. Next to him, Doc Yim let out a hollow chuckle. "Yeah, well, if they wanted out that bad, I would have written them a damn note." Sanchez didn't respond right away. Then he whispered, "I hope wherever they are, they're watching." Yim nodded. "They always are." Within days, intelligence confirmed it. The Council was breaking apart. The Valari, once loyal supporters of the Elder Hierarchy, withdrew from all Council activity. Their homeworlds vanished behind cloaking barriers. Dozens of minor species fled their assigned systems and went dark. The Council's message, once unified and unstoppable, fractured. Internal communications leaked, secret debates, civil war discussions, and in the middle of it all, a signal. The Holosky's voice transmitted again. "The chains have cracked. Now cut the root." President Dareth called a meeting with Marine Command. "This is it," she said. "We strike now while the Council is bleeding." Operation Thorn Reaper was greenlit, a preemptive assault on the Council's capital system, Elaris Prime, home to the Elder High Circle and its vast command structure. The Union could not field a full-scale invasion, but they could send fire into the heart of tyranny. The mission: insert a hybrid strike team, Marines, Spectres, Centurions, into Elaris Prime's moonborn data vaults and wipe their central command AI, core intelligence vein, the digital heart of their strategic power. Ramirez turned to Sanchez in the briefing. "You've seen more of this war than anyone, son. I won't order you in, but if you're willing..." Sanchez cut him off with a grin. "You really think I'd pass up the chance to punch the Council's throne in the face?" Ortega groaned. "We're doomed." Sanchez just clapped him on the shoulder. "You say that every mission." Ortega raised a brow. "We almost die every mission." "Almost," Sanchez grinned. "That's the trick." The ship was a black arrow, slipping past Council patrol lines with spectral silence. Its stealth skin adapted to the wavelengths of nearby surveillance fields hiding in plain sight. UEV Shadowlance, a top-secret prototype, carried the best Earth had left. On board, Sanchez, Centurion pilot and mission lead Sergeant Nyla Jex, Spectre Infiltration Corpsman Yim, Medic and Technical Ops Ortega, Vanguard Heavy Assault Lieutenant Kravik, Intel and Systems Analyst 2 Spectre fire teams for strike support. Their destination, Elaris Prime, seat of the Elder Council. Their target, Core Intelligence Vine, the AI system controlling the strategic command of the remaining Council military machine. They dropped at midnight, local orbital cycle. The capital's outer moon, Glace Tier, held the core vaults in its crust, buried beneath layers of armor and automated defenses. Phase 1 began with a kinetic strike. Rail-inserted tunneling rods that burrowed through the surface and left molten shafts in their wake. The Marines followed immediately, dropping into the shafts in grav-stabilized pods. Sanchez went in first. His Centurion armor gleamed like obsidian, his HUD lit with threat signatures. "Time to knock," he whispered, and hit the floor running. Explosions bloomed behind him as Ortega's team cleared the first defense ring. The Spectres ghosted past turrets, planted charges, and left silent death in their wake. Yim hacked through the first vault interface. "We've got 6 minutes before auto reboot." "Then we move," Jex said, already vanishing into the dark. Inside, they didn't find servers. They found mines. Each chamber was a sensory nightmare, glass columns filled with preserved brain matter, ancient neural clusters pulsing with synthetic light. The Council hadn't built their AI. They had grown it, harvesting the minds of subjugated species to create Vine, a gestalt intelligence built from the condemned. "They didn't trust machines," Kravik murmured, "so they used life." Jex's voice cracked over comms. "There are children in these records." Sanchez stared at a chamber labeled X Theta Earth, human variant. "They used us too." Vane's core was buried behind kilometers of obsidian lattice and quantum encryptors, but Earth's best weren't here to ask permission. Sanchez and Ortega breached the vault wall using synchronized micropulses and charged grav spikes. They entered a chamber of cold light. At its center, a pillar of living energy, faces flickering across its surface, whispering in every known language at once. Then it spoke, using Sanchez's voice. "You cannot destroy me. I have always been here. I will always be here. You are made of fire. I am made of ash, and ash survives fire." Sanchez stepped forward. "You're not a god, you're a graveyard." He uploaded the virus packet Kravik had prepared, code laced with human illogic, emotion, and instinct. Vane screamed. The pillar convulsed. Then the vault shook. "Emergency breach," Yim called. "We've got inbound, multiple corridors, Council elite guard. Seal the room." The Council's last defenders stormed the vault. Sleek armored titans wielding dark matter blades and distortion cannons. Ortega took the first wave, dropping 3 before a bolt cracked his shoulder plate. Jex blinked from pillar to pillar, placing charges while cutting down attackers with cold efficiency. Sanchez, armored in Vindicator, held the center. The core behind him howled as Vane's collapse accelerated. The light in the chamber flickered, Vane's face twisting through a dozen species, pleading, bargaining, raging. "We gave them order," it hissed. "You give them chaos." Sanchez's plasma blade came to life. "Chaos is just freedom that hasn't learned to walk yet." He drove the blade into the final relay node. Vane's scream shattered the vault's walls, and the entire moon began to tremble. The team raced for the surface. As they ascended, the walls around them broke into pieces. The gravitic core that anchored the moon began to destabilize. Entire structures collapsed into tunnels behind them. Ortega carried 2 wounded Spectres. Yim dragged Kravik, unconscious from feedback pulse exposure. Jex cleared the exit path with a shockwave charge. Sanchez held the rear, plasma cannon blasting apart pursuing drones until the upper chamber opened to vacuum. The Shadowlance arrived just in time, magnetic grapples pulling the team aboard seconds before the structure imploded behind them. They barely cleared orbit before the moon detonated in a shockwave of molten debris and dying light. Across the galaxy, Council command nodes flickered. Fleet orders ceased. Satellites fell silent. Entire worlds stopped receiving direction. The Council High Circle, now blind and fractured, issued its final transmission. Core has fallen. Autonomous defense protocols engaged. Collapse imminent. From the deck of the Shadowlance, Sanchez watched the explosion fade in the distance. "Throne's gone," he whispered. "Let's see how they act without a leash." Vane's death rippled across the stars like a broken dam. Within hours, Council garrisons discovered their logistics queues blank, their weapons locks frozen, their commanders mute. Planets that had endured millennia of harmony felt the chains snap. President Dareth broadcast a call that echoed on every open frequency. "To the peoples once silenced, rise. To the worlds once caged, fight. We strike not for conquest, but for the birthright stolen from us all." Valari flotillas uncloaked beside Union cruisers. Yalari sand skimmers took station with Martian gun frigates. Even rogue council captains, suddenly masterless, spliced their jump drives onto the growing armada. The Marines nicknamed it Task Force Phoenix, because when the galaxy finally burned away the rot, Something better was going to rise from the ash. Target, Kareth's Ring, a fortress world of concentric habitats whose orbital guns once made rebellion suicide. Hammerfall-class cruisers punched a 3-second corridor through the gun grid. Centurions and Vanguards rode drop sleds straight into the breach. On the Western Rim platform, Ortega's fire team leapfrogged node to node, disabling capacitors with combat hatchets when EMP grenades failed. Jex ghosted through maintenance shafts, leaving beacon charges that blossomed into doors of white flame. Sanchez, in a freshly refit XM3 Firebrand, took a direct hit, lost a forearm cannon, then used the severed limb as a club to smash the last turret offline. Within 90 minutes, the fortress surrendered. Its governor emerged shaking, demanded terms. Ramirez offered a single line, "Open every cell and pick a side." He did. Word of Kareth's fall spread faster than ships could jump. Systems along the spine corridor revolted in sequence. Helion deltas, miners armed with industrial lasers overran their overseers while Marines cut drone support lines. Tessia 4. Scholars flooded the streets broadcasting council atrocities from seized holotowers. Spectres slipped among them, silencing sniper roosts. Krya's Vale, an ice world where children had never seen sunlight. Union engineers melted prison skylights with orbital mirrors while Vanguard squads broke open orphan barracks beneath. Each victory added ships, material, hope. But every jump drive pointed the same direction. Elder Space, Inner 7. The throne was shattered, yet the seat of power still housed billions who didn't know freedom had a name again. Amid celebrations, new anomalies lit comm screens, pulse pips in the unique cipher that had saved Sanchez. The ash is thin. Burn or be buried. Embedded within was stellar telemetry, pinpointing a void between Council and liberated space. Long-range scopes revealed impossible masses drifting out of the hollow sky, city-sized constructs shaped like crescents of bone and brass, no drive plume, moving on physics that defied scan. Union think tanks panicked, fleet strategists argued. President Dareth summoned Ramirez, Lyle, and Sanchez to a secure channel. Lyle's projection trembled. If those things mean to rule after the council, we're marching into a fresh empire. Sanchez sipped reheated coffee, armor still smoking from Kareth. Then we keep marching. My dad's rules still stand. Don't die without permission, and never let tyrants write the last chapter. Ramirez grinned, the tired lines on his face softening for the first time in weeks. Guess we'd better sharpen the quills. Task Force Phoenix closed on Aurelian, first of the Inner 7. Council diehards formed a cordon of half-functioning dreadnoughts. They fired blind, weapon locks glitching since Vane's fall. Humanity and its new allies plunged through the gaps. Sanchez and 3 Centurions skid-landed on a golden plaza, beaconed by hollow statues of elders towering like dead gods. They smashed the icons to rubble, broadcasting the image system-wide. Yim coordinated triage stations for liberated civilians while under mortar fire, stitching wounds one heartbeat, firing a pulse pistol the next. Jex hacked palace archives, projecting centuries of council indoctrination alongside raw footage of their secret prison mines. Propaganda burned in its own light. By dusk, the council banner hung in tatters. Aurelian skies filled with fireworks of captured supply ships firing harmless flares, an alien civilization's first taste of street-level freedom. Just as cheers echoed planet-wide, every comm unit shrieked with a single incoming transmission, universal band, undisguised. A colorless face formed in hard light above Parliament Square, neither council nor any species on record. Its eyes shimmered like supernovas caught mid-collapse. "The fire spreads well," the being said, voice at once thunder and lullaby. "But will it burn bright enough when the Nightforge arrives?" Coordinates followed, deep within hollow sky space, then the visage dissolved, leaving the square cold. Sanchez exhaled a slow breath. "And here I thought overtime ended today." Ramirez clapped his shoulder. "Pack fresh magazines, Marine. If a new empire wants to test the fire, we'll teach him how hot humanity can get." Sanchez wiped sweat and another quiet tear, then flashed his crooked grin. Some Marines will do anything to get more work. The war had turned. Worlds were falling free. Council fleets scattered. Refugees raised their own banners. For the first time in centuries, hope was not a myth, but a presence, moving with the thunder of human boots and Marine resolve. And yet, In the aftermath of Aurelian, not all of them marched toward the next front. In a reinforced bay overlooking Earthrise, a line of Marines stood beside dropships bound for Sol, not because they were wounded, but because they were done. Staff Sergeant Malden, once a railgun emplacement expert, stood in silence beside his packed kit. He had fought through the siege of Luna, Kareth's Ring, and 3 boarding actions against Council dreadnoughts. His armor was still scorched. He handed his helmet to a logistics officer and nodded. "Tell Gunny I'm not quitting, just listening to what's left of myself." Beside him, Corporal Denari, the squad's best spotter, hugged Yim tightly. "Keep them alive," she whispered, "even if it's just one more, even if it's not you." Private Bosun, only 19, once known for singing old folk songs during downtime, just stared at the stars as tears streaked down his cheeks. "I love them all, but I can't watch them die anymore." No one argued, no one shamed them. Ramirez came personally to see them off. He said little, only shook each hand. His silence was the deepest kind of respect. "You held the line," he finally said. "That's forever." They boarded the shuttle. As it rose over the hangar, Sanchez saluted with 2 fingers. Doc Yim stood beside him, quiet. "You think they're right?" he asked. Sanchez stared after the receding lights. "No," he said, "but I think they're done being wrong, and that's enough." That night, the lights dimmed in the command deck. The next mission loomed. Commander Lyle projected the latest scans, fuzzy images of impossibly vast, crescent-shaped constructs approaching from the hollow sky. They did not respond to hails, they did not fire, they simply moved toward liberated space. President Dareth's message came in live from Earth. "We are calling this pre-event Protocol 0. All Phoenix Task Force elements are ordered to intercept. These entities are not bound by our past assumptions. We face not just a rival, but something old enough to remember a time before civilization." Ramirez looked over the room. "I won't lie, this next one may not be a war, it might be a reckoning." He glanced at Sanchez, Ortega, Jex, and Yim. "But if there's one thing I know, it's this. They don't know what it means to face a human who remembers pain and chooses to fight anyway." Later, Sanchez sat alone in the observation bay. He watched Earth turn slowly in the distance. He thought of Denari, of Malden, of Bosun and the others who went home, not because they broke, but because they had earned their peace. He whispered a simple goodbye to each. Then he rose. Outside, Firebrand waited, its armor refit, its systems primed. The path ahead led into void-born machines, whispers from ancient stars, and a darkness older than fire. But Sanchez smiled anyway. He wasn't afraid of the dark. Because he was the match. The stars here did not twinkle. They loomed, cold, still, ancient. No nebulae, no radiation fields, no comm distortion. Just silence so complete it pressed against skin like a physical weight. Task Force Phoenix drifted in formation. Dozens of Union cruisers, Volari warflowers, Martian dreadcorps, civilian vessels retrofitted with repulsor plating. At the front, Hammerfall held station. Marines stood assembled in full armor across every launch bay and observation deck. Centurions gleamed under ghost lights, Spectres crouched unseen, Vanguards flexed gloved fists on weapon grips. And at the center of it all, Sanchez, standing on Hammerfall's forward platform, unhelmed, exposed to the vacuum through an energy field. Watching, waiting. They had expected war, expected orbital fire, expected the Night Forge to descend like myth, metal gods wielding light to carve the future into ash. Instead, the Forge simply arrived. One crescent-shaped vessel, no weapons activated, no drones, just a single doorway, a jagged aperture at its base, glowing faintly with pulsing blue. And from that doorway, a figure. It walked without protection, no suit, no shield. The vacuum bent around it like it dared not touch it. Tall, still, human. It wore no armor, only a black robe that drifted like smoke. Its face, clear, unmistakable, was human, older, weathered, eyes dark with galaxies. The Marines didn't move, didn't speak, not even Sanchez. He just stared. The figure came to a stop 20 meters from the gathered ranks. Then it spoke, not aloud, but in every mind present. "We are the first flame. You are the last fire. We forged the stars before memory. You are the first to burn again." It turned to Sanchez. "You carry pain with purpose. Not hatred, not hunger. You passed the test. You will not be conquered. You will not be enslaved. You will be offered choice." On every ship, across every species, the message resonated. The Night Forge had not come to destroy, it had come to see, to judge, and in that stillness Sanchez finally spoke, his voice dry, quiet, but steady. "You look like us." The emissary tilted its head slightly. "You look like we once did." Sanchez narrowed his eyes. "So what now? You testing us again? Waiting for us to burn ourselves out?" The emissary smiled, not cruel, not kind, just old. "We came to remember what fire feels like, and to see if yours is worth passing on." From Luna's arcology towers to the undersea cities of Pacifica to the domed ruins of Krya's Vale, humanity and its allies gathered, watching, listening. The Nightforge emissary stood beneath the open starlight on the Hammerfall's forward deck, with the entire Phoenix task force behind it. The question had been asked, and now it awaited an answer. The voice of the emissary echoed across thought and machine. "Your fire burns bright. We have seen your defiance. We have felt your grief. You remember pain not as a wound but as a forge. You are ready to stand beside us or apart." It extended one hand. "Join us. Step beyond time. We will pass you the flame eternal, the ability to shape stars, silence entropy, remember the lost. You will become more than species. You will become memory incarnate." It paused. "Or choose to walk alone. Live, love, and die as you are. Flawed, glorious, brief. Either path is not weakness, but only one is fire everlasting." On Earth, President Dareth sat with her advisors, stunned. What they're offering, it's godhood. On Mars, war veterans sat in silence before holoscreens, tears mixing with red dust. They had fought for freedom, not transcendence. On Valari moons, children born free for the first time watched their elders argue, voices trembling with awe and fear. And on Luna, inside the Hammerfall's war room, the Marines gathered around a single man, Sanchez. Sanchez's choice. He didn't speak for a long time. He simply looked at the stars, then to Ortega, to Jex, to Yim, and finally to Ramirez. "I've buried too many good Marines," he said quietly. "Some of them should have lived forever." Ortega crossed his arms, "And some of them earned the right to rest." Sanchez nodded, then he turned to the emissary. "You gave us a choice." He stepped forward and smiled, soft, human, defiant. "Then here's mine." He raised his voice, not just for the emissary, but for all who watched, across every system. "We'll keep the fire, not to burn stars forever, not to rewrite the universe, but to warm our dead, to light our future, to remind the galaxy that we were here, and we were free." The Nightforge figure stood still, then it bowed, a slow, deep movement, not of dominance, but of respect. "So be it. Your flame remains yours. You are not children, you are not gods, you are something far rarer, you are whole." It stepped backward into the void. Its vessel, silent, immense, turned without sound and vanished into the stars. The darkness closed behind it, but the sky somehow seemed brighter. On Luna, as the first sunbeam crept across the regolith, Sanchez stood alone. His Centurion armor rested beside him, battle-scarred. His rifle lay buried in the sand. Doc Yim approached, placing a thermos beside him. "Coffee," he said. "Still your favorite weapon." Sanchez laughed. "I made a choice, Doc." "I know. You think they'll remember us?" Yim looked at the rising earth. "They already do." 20 years later, the world called Haven. The stars were quieter now. Peace wasn't perfect, but it was earned. Across former council worlds, children ran beneath blue skies. Valari cities hummed with renewal. Human colonies stretched into deep space, not as conquerors, but as companions. And on a distant frontier world called Haven, a place with turquoise rivers and amber grasslands, one man sat on a porch that overlooked a silent valley. Sanchez. His armor was gone, his rank retired. He wore simple clothes, leather gloves, boots caked in garden soil. A scar still crept up the side of his neck, a gift from Arcadia's flame. His hands trembled sometimes, but they planted trees just fine. Visitors from the fire. The transport shuttle kicked up dust as it landed on the ridge. Its silhouette was clean, Union-built, marked with a faded insignia, Phoenix 3, Fire Team Echo. Out stepped Lieutenant Dalen, age 22, born 2 weeks after the siege of Luna. He wore new generation armor, sleek, refined, unscarred. He approached the porch and saluted. "Sir, Lance Corporal Sanchez?" Sanchez smirked. "Only person on this planet who answers to that." The young Marine hesitated. "We're mapping memorials, legacy locations. We wanted to ask if you'd share what it was like, being there." Sanchez looked up at the stars. "They always want to know what it was like." He patted the chair beside him. "You sure you got time for a fire story?" As Dalen sat, Sanchez pulled out an old metal box. Inside, a crumpled mission patch, a melted dog tag, a photo, faded but still visible. 6 Marines, shoulder to shoulder, Ortega, Jex, Yim, Ramirez, Malden, and Sanchez, laughing like death couldn't touch them. Dalen leaned in. "You still think about them?" Sanchez nodded. "Every day." "Do you regret the choice you made, not ascending?" He was quiet a long time. Then, "No, because if we gave up what we were, we wouldn't be us anymore. We were Marines. We remembered pain, and we fought anyway." He looked at Dalen. "You remember that. You'll be just fine." That night, a single bonfire flickered in the field behind the house. Sanchez sat beside it, watching the sparks drift into the stars, at peace. Because the last fire watch never ends. Not as long as someone remembers.